think I owe Nintendo an apology. So back in August, about 6 months ago, 5 months ago, I put out a video kind of chastising Nintendo for what was happening with the SNES Classic pre-orders and what I thought was going to end up happening with the console's release. If you all recall, what happened was they announced the pre-orders at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and people who were running bots on websites waiting to snag them up as soon as they were released ended up doing so. Pre-orders sold out within like 10 minutes or something ridiculous like that. And people woke up the next morning to learn that they'd lost their chance to pre-order the SNES Classic, and a lot of people were rightfully pretty pissed, myself among them. Let's take a look at the video I put up last August. So this one stung in particular, and yeah, I hope Nintendo makes this right, but I don't know, we'll see. But my issues with the whole thing are twofold. First of all is the fact that Nintendo cannot possibly be this short-sighted every single time. Going into the situation, it wasn't like a miscalculation or an underestimation of people's want for the device like it was with the Nintendo Classic. I mean, this time around, they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into. They knew how big the demand was going to be, and still only very limited quantities were made available to retailers. I don't know what they've got to gain from this. I don't believe in the principle in this day and age that decreased supply increases demand, it results in profit. I think that's bullshit, because we know that this thing basically will print money if they just wanted to take the time and the resources to create enough units to sell properly. The only people who are benefiting from this are scalpers. I mean, Nintendo in their right minds should be producing millions of this thing and putting it out there because they know people want it. You know, there's no need whatsoever to create scarcity for this thing because everybody already wants it. So why would you only put out like a few thousand across the country or whatever number it was that they you know, released for pre-orders to retailers when they're just leaving an unfathomable amount of money on the table this time around? It just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, back then I really felt like I had a reason to be angry, and I think most people did. It looked like Nintendo was about to just completely redo the same mistakes they made with the NES Classic and misjudge and misgauge the demand for this product and not put enough supply out there. Basically just putting the ball in scalpers' courts to control this product and making it possible for normal people like you and me to go and get one. I was wrong, and it's with a heavy heart and with that in hand that I actually need to apologize to Nintendo. You know, some months a little bit too late, but even so, here it is. So straight away, the initial supply for the console was actually more than people were expecting, and I think it was actually a pretty plentiful supply of consoles on the morning it was released. I mentioned in my video that my plan was to hit up Toys R Us early in the morning because Toys R Us was the only company that was not actually participating in the online pre-orders, and thus I thought would be the one company that would have a more plentiful supply upon release day that morning. I actually decided against that. I actually, in turn, went to Target instead and decided to brave the line there and just, you know, take my chances. Turned out to be the best thing. I went to what they call super Targets. If you're not familiar, it's a super-sized Target that tends to have also like a grocery section and whatnot. They tend to put them in pretty heavily residential areas, and they typically tend to get more of these types of items in stock, the Super NES Classic, and so forth. So yeah, I waited in line from about 4 o'clock in the morning till about 8 when they opened. I dragged my younger sister out. I promised her I would buy her one if she came out with me and held my place in line, and I would hold her place in line so we can do Starbucks runs and whatnot. And it also made for a much easier waiting time given the fact that I had somebody I get along with very well for company. So while we're waiting in line, I'm checking the usual stock sites. And I read that the Super Target we're at will actually have like something like 85 units or something for release. And I'm thinking to myself, that's going to be bullshit. But other people are also doing the same thing in line. And the rumor starts building that this Super Target is going to have 80. And not only is everybody in line going to get one, there's going to be probably some left over once the initial rush dies down. And some lucky people who come in later on when the stores open that morning might actually be able to just grab one off the shelf. And that actually ended up being the case, believe it or not. There were probably about 50 or 60 people in line behind me before the doors opened at 8 a.m. And yeah, there were more consoles at that Target than there were people waiting in line. I don't know if that's the case in most areas. I assume that, some rural areas and places like that weren't as fortunate to have as many consoles, but getting home, opening it up, playing with it for a little bit, and then checking the stories, you know, what was happening in the world that morning, it seemed like a lot of people were impressed with what Nintendo had pulled off with its launch. And there were, of course, some people who weren't able to get them. They weren't able to go wait in line. They weren't able to make it happen for themselves. But Nintendo also made good on their promise that they would continue to manufacture the units and they would continuously put them out throughout the Christmas season and into 2018. That's happening. It's still really tricky to try and find it on any major retailers' websites like Best Buy or Target. I actually just checked today before recording this video and it was unavailable on Target.com. But I checked Amazon and at that point there were like 900 and some odd buying options to be able to purchase the thing on Amazon at a reasonable price, not scalper prices. I think the highest one I saw was like maybe $100 with shipping, which is pretty much what you'd be paying if you were to order it from Target or Walmart or Best Buy. So Nintendo, I'm sorry. You shocked us. You did drop the ball with the NES Classic. You got to admit that, and you've made good on that as well. You're continuing to now produce more units and put them out this year. I think there's going to be a new shipment of NES Classics hitting store shelves and websites, I think this spring or summer, if my memory recalls. So yeah, you made good on the massive national boo-boo you committed against gamers everywhere. I've had my Classic for several months now, since launch day, and I've enjoyed every second I've played with it. The other people I know who were eager to get one were able to grab one on launch day, and all is right in the world. And you're doing really well with the Switch too. It's the highest selling console in history or some shit like that. And every time I go into a retailer like Best Buy or Target, I'm seeing at least one or two ready for purchase there on the store shelf. Well, locked in the case because they don't want people to, you know, steal them or whatever. So yeah, Nintendo, I'm kind of proud of you, and I'm sorry it's taken me this long to put this video out there. I didn't mean to slight you in any way, not that you will ever see this or really care, but yeah, I feel a little guilty for not making good and giving you guys props for doing the right thing and making a lot of people happy throughout the Christmas season and coming into the new year. So cheers to you. And cheers to you guys at home for watching this video. Hopefully you've got an SNES Classic. If not, like I said, there's like 900 different ways to buy it on Amazon for a reasonable price. So if you don't have one, go get one now. It's awesome. By the way, Secret of Mana is really fucking hard. I forgot how hard that game was. Okay, bye.